This is a special presentation of the Gaming News Canada show with Steve McAllister.
Hello and welcome back to the Gaming News Canada show. And yes, I am your host, Steve McAllister. The Canadian Elite Basketball League's sixth season opens this evening with the Edmonton Stingers visiting the Calgary Surge in a Battle of Alberta Hoops edition. Since its launch in 2019, the CEBL has grown to 10 teams across 6 provinces, with another round of expansion scheduled to happen in 2025. The league has established itself quickly as a development destination for players, coaches, broadcasters, and others. And speaking of established, the top of the CEBL leadership chain features 2 of my favorite people in the wide world of sports. So we welcome to this episode of the Gaming News Canada show, the Commissioner of the Canadian Elite Basketball League, Mike Morreale, and the league's Deputy Commissioner, John Lashway. Hey, Mike and John, so great to have both you guys. Long overdue.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Great to see you. Thank you.
And just full disclosure, I mean, John and I are, I wouldn't say lifelong friends, but certainly longtime friends, John. I think probably our relationship now goes back, must be pushing close to 30 years since you came to Toronto as a senior executive of the Toronto Raptors.
29 years ago last month, and you were one of the first people I met.
So, well, don't hold that against the rest of the people, John.
I stayed, so you're one of those people.
Hey, Mike, I want to start with, and it's funny, we had a back and forth via email the last couple of days, and I talked about this being the 5th season, and you corrected me quickly, and that it's indeed the 6th season that tips off tonight. And it just begs the first question: is how do we get to 6 years so quickly? It's almost mind-boggling.
It is. We kind of blinked and grew up all of a sudden. It's been quite the ride. Some of it forgettable when going through COVID and the rest of it, and some of it, just so much on the horizon at the same time. So, we've been blessed. We have great people in this organization, and that extends to the people on the court and the coaches and everything. But just, the staff here at league office, the staff and respective owners across the league have really bought into what we're doing. They're in 100%, 110%. And, we just take one step at a time. We're very, we have great ideas. We have lots of these great creative visions, and often, we've been in a really favorable position to be able to make those happen very quickly, just on how we were built, how we were created. And, we're rising in popularity as the game itself rises as well. So we're in a very enviable position, I think, as it comes to professional sports in this country. We're very blessed. We don't take it for granted, that's for sure. There's a lot more work to be done, but, we've every year seem to take steps forward, just making sure we become more mature, better at what we do, more open to more people. And the fans have responded and the players have responded to make this a destination and something worth, looking forward to in your spring and summer.
Hey, before I get to John, Mike, I guess the other question too, it just seems in hindsight now, when you look back, the timing couldn't be better to launch this league. I mean, Canadian basketball is just it's rocking right now. I mean, the talent we see in the NBA, the women that we see not just playing at the NCAA level, but the U Sports level, and of course those players moving on to WNBA. There certainly hasn't been a better time for basketball in this country.
It's incredible. When we first came on the scene, there was no real professional basketball at this level. Of course, the Raptors were leading the way and coming off a championship, which certainly helped, us in the same year that we launched. They win, a world championship in the NBA. And what that does is, I think behind the scenes for us gives us another 30-year run. Like, there's kids out there, men and women, boys and girls, that are just enamored with what happened and then pick up a basketball. And, the bronze medal at the World Cup and the potential Olympic, wherever they place, just the fact that they're there again. These are all monumental, periods in time that really help develop the sport across the whole country and at all levels. So we're here to kind of sing the praises at the professional level, at the, the top of the pyramid, so to speak, with Canada basketball. But it's what we do underneath that really matters. And because of what's happened with basketball in this country, men, women, it's really allowed us to build that funnel, and quite a substantial one.
John, you had really a bird's eye view of what basketball could be in this country when you moved to Toronto from the U.S. 29 years ago, and being involved with the Raptors and seeing the impact of the Raptors and to some extent the Vancouver Grizzlies had on basketball in this country. I'm thinking that you probably had a notion quite a while ago that Canada could support a men's basketball league in this country, and that there would be an appetite, not just from fans, but for player development to have a league like the CEBL.
Yeah, exactly. So when I came to Canada in 1995, there was only two Canadians in the NBA, Rick Fox and Bill Wennington. And now Bill's going to be a broadcaster for us this season. So it's fantastic just to keep someone like Bill involved in Canadian basketball. But I really believe that from the beginning. In the first year of the Raptors, 95, 96, my office was next to Glenn Grunwald's. And, we would talk about how Canada didn't have a professional league like other countries did. And we, would kind of blue sky what that could look like and the impact it would have on growing the game. And, here we are all these years later. And, a number of people, have tried to launch a league in this country. And, for various reasons, they never succeeded. And, this league has succeeded, and in a big way and pretty quickly. I think the vision and the financial support that Richard Petco, the co-founder, along with Mike, has put into this, it can't be overstated. That was really significant. And, as you alluded to, the timing was good, the right people involved. I mean, Mike's absolutely the right guy to be the commissioner of this thing, given his background. And I think the people that we brought into this bring different perspectives. And we bring perspectives from other sports. We're creative and innovative and have a no fear of failure mentality. And that's why this succeeds. And it's the right people at the right time.
Hey, Mike, I want to ask you about the business part of it in a second here, but I also want to ask John, I just want to put my sports media cap on for a second. And to me, in a validation of this league, you put out your announcement, I think 2 weeks ago, about the TSN broadcast team for this season. And you see names like Chuck Swirsky and Paul Jones and Amy Audebert and Rod Black. And the fact that these guys like Chuck Swirsky would come from from Chicago in the summer to spend some of his summer broadcasting basketball games, to me, that kind of tells its own story about people believing in this league.
Yeah, and I think that's important because I just believe go for it, shoot for the moon. And I think that if you want to be perceived as big time, you need to operate as big time, and you need to have a larger vision. And so, these are people I've known for a long time, and it just came out of conversations I had with them and, about this league and about their time in the summer. And, these are people that are committed to growing basketball and growing the game. And I think we feel very fortunate to have people like Chuck and Rod and Amy and Paul Jones and, Bill Whittington, all the NBA people. I'm forgetting some, I know. Joe Razzo does a great job for us. Chantel Valet is going to do some games, as well as our sideline reporters. So it's an opportunity for people like Heather Morrison, who a year ago was, kind of localized in Saskatoon, and now she's a recognized sideline reporter. And she's really grown her own profile within the broadcasting world.
Hey, Mike, on the business side, and again, you have a unique perspective as a former CFL player. And the first major beat I covered at the Canadian Press way back in 1988 was a CFL. And I remember the peaks and valleys and the roller coaster ride and ownership questions. And was the league going to survive another year? And were teams going to fold? And who was going to rescue a team? 6 years into this league, you don't hear anything about, you've had some relocation, obviously, but you don't hear teams not making payroll for the players, or there's an issue with with trying to find corporate partnerships. And it's always a good thing when kind of the business side of a league goes below the radar. What do you attribute that to?
I think there's a few things. One, knowing who we are and where we fit into the landscape of sports in this country. So we don't oversell ourselves. We're very confident in what we do and the image we present, in arena or at home or just on our social media, etc. But we took, I was blessed. I've spent, a long time in the CFL circles, which was the only professional domestic league in this country and had been for 100 years. So it had the history. And if you look across, the CPL and the CEBL, there's a lot of CFL people there. It's where you learn how to deal with domestic sport. It's not as easy as it would be maybe, south of the border. So I had the ability to start from scratch, or we had the ability to start from scratch, be creative, take the best things, best attributes that we think will work. I was fortunate to be a player, so always have a lens on what the players want or may want. They are your biggest asset. They are the ones you have to keep the happiest, and it's important. It's important for what they do on the court, but it's important for them leading us in the communities that we play in and all that stuff. So we had a plan, we had a vision. We stuck to that vision very, very clearly, even though we had to go through these massive hurdles called COVID. We just forged ahead, and kudos to Richard Petko, who put a lot more in than he ever intended to. I think I always joke with him. He's in so far now, he's not getting out. His victory is us continuing to do this as long as we can. So all those things combined, and just having the passion for wanting to make this a success and feeding off the fans. Because, growing up on the football landscape, and John alluded to it a bit, we don't really have many basketball people in this operation. These are sports business people who have seen Olympics, have seen professional sports, the NBA, NHL, CFL, etc. So we lean on what we've learned and use that to our advantage. But we have fans out there that are, really, really important to us. And we're an important part of what they do as well.
John, that's such a great point Mike makes about domestic league. And I'm thinking it must have been a bit of an eye-opener for you when you came to Canada. I mean, you're someone who'd worked in the NCAA, had worked in the NBA on the US side, and you see the passion that sports fans in your home country have, especially for college sports. Certainly a different dynamic. I think it's getting better in Canada, but we're still, we don't have that attachment to Canadian universities and student athletes that they do in the US. Is that something that you found that you had to learn over time, just that the sports landscape in Canada is a different one?
Yes, it's really different from where I came from, where pretty much everybody's involved in sports in one form or another. Kids in school, everybody's either on the team or in the band or on the dance team or, whatever. And it's just really has a different place in this culture. Somebody asked me in an interview last week whether I thought that Canadian university sports could become like U.S. university sports. And I said, no, for lots of reasons, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. As Mike said, you have to know who you are. And, I like university sports. I got out of it and into the pros for reasons that personally for me, I wasn't a big fan of the NCAA and the way they approached how they dealt with athletes. I like it much better now. And I think, Canadian universities, are what they are. And I would love to see more opportunities for student athletes. But, there's a lot of good about the NCAA sports and there's a lot of not so good. But, it is what it is. I go to McMaster events because I live nearby and, in University of Guelph once in a while. And it is what it is.
Yeah. And I guess because I have this forum, I'll just, for anyone listening here that in Canada, if you ever have a chance to go out and watch a U Sports game, please do. And I say that as someone who refereed Canadian University hockey back in the 90s or 80s. And one of the best kept secrets, Mike, in Canadian hockey is college hockey in this country. It's unbelievable. And again, as a father of a daughter who played 4 years of lacrosse at Western and spent a lot of Saturday afternoons for 4 years on campuses across Ontario, the caliber of these athletes is exceptional, and the price points. I went and watched the University of Guelph men's basketball game 2 years ago when I was coaching a girls hockey weekend for my Kincardine team, and I think it would cost me $8 to watch University of Guelph play Nipissing, and the basketball was outstanding.
Yeah, I think it's important that we so often get caught up in the glitz and glam and the marketing of the product, and we feel that the players on the court are so incredibly better than what we see with our homegrown talent. That's not the case. It wasn't the case when I played in the CFL, and we used to line up against players from Nebraska and Michigan State and Notre Dame. They were just another player. They weren't any better than the Canadians that were on the rosters across the league. So, we can't fault our athletes, our student athletes, for what happens at the administrative level, right? They are still very high caliber athletes. And we like to raise their profile. One of the biggest things we do is our CBL draft that now includes U Sports and Canadian college athletes. It gives us some of the most engagement we have throughout the course of the year. And these guys are fantastic athletes and fantastic players, and they get this incredible opportunity to learn and to continue their careers and get better and better and make their U Sport program or their college program better when they return. And that just continues to raise the bar. So we're really proud of that addition to what we do.
This is a gaming show. I want to get in that second. Before we do, I want to give both Mike, you and John a chance just to talk about the big storylines for the league going into this season. And again, the Scarborough Shooting Stars, the defending champions, that seems to have been a great story with the way basketball's caught on in that community, which isn't a surprise. But if you're someone who maybe hasn't followed the CEBL closely, and Mike, I'll start with you, but what are some of the things that people should watch for this season?
Well, I think that the talent level is incredible. We continue to raise that year after year, and we've already sent 14 players through to NBA contracts through the CBL pathway. That's incredible. It doesn't happen in any really domestic leagues on the basketball side anywhere in the world. So, our affiliation and our proximity to the U.S. and the NBA and the G League is a real benefit to us. And the fact we play in the spring and summer and have access to, a lot of players that maybe don't want to jump on a plane and fly to Turkey or China or where have you, want to stay within the confines of what they're comfortable with, knowing they'll be seen, is great. So that alludes to the fact that we just continue to get better and better players. Our Canadian talent is incredible. We've now are the cream of the crop in terms of our Canadians. We're attracting back, returning players, new players coming fresh out of the NCAA, fresh out of U Sports and Canadian college, international talent. But what you'll see is a high level of competitiveness. I think that's usually driven by, the Canadian talent, quite frankly, because of everyone knows each other in this league. So there's a real competitive nature once they get on a court. Like, they have grown up together, and they've grown up with the Shays and the Jamals and the Nikhils. Like, it's a big family, and those guys sit courtside. And it's become an event. And then, of course, the talent across the board really has a goal for themselves to go on to the next level. So they play with that intention. And, we don't get hangers on. We don't get guys that are just here to make a buck. They actually are. We're very fortunate. They're here to do a job that helps get them to where they want to go. And the CBL is a pathway. So, I look forward to sellout crowds. We'll have over 10,000 in Calgary at the Saddle Dome tonight. What a way to kick off or tip off the season. You're going to see teams in the East like Niagara and Scarborough that are incredibly talented. You're going to see teams in the West like Winnipeg and Vancouver that are incredibly talented. I know I'm leaving a bunch of teams out, but across the board, the parity is incredible. And I think if you're a fan, and in my seat, I always say, the home team wins, I'd be happy with that, and we'll figure out the playoffs at the end of the day. But it just is any given day, the talent level is so high and so equal that you're going to be in for some great matchups, and everything comes down to our target score finish, which for those people that don't know, I won't get into it, but everybody stays in their seat. So from a fan perspective, people don't leave a game early. They stay there, they enjoy it. And that captive audience is really important to continue to build the brand and grow the brand.
John?
Yeah, there's about 72, 73% of our players are Canadians. So there's roughly 400 Canadians that play professionally around the world. So, everybody knows the 28 or so that are in the NBA, but there's another 375 playing at high levels around the world. And, a lot of the best players play in the CEBL during the summertime, which is, traditionally their off season. And they're here to develop their skills to get a better contract in the fall or to play at a higher level. So the quality of play is really high. It's G League caliber. So if that's the level of basketball that you like, the ticket prices are reasonable. We play FIBA style basketball, so it's faster paced than say a G League game. It's a little quicker. The games last about an hour and 50 minutes. So it's appealing to families and people that want to go out and have a good time and get home at a reasonable hour and not spend an arm and a leg. Our teams are super active in their communities. These players get involved in summer camps and clinics and different things around the community. It's something we actually build into the contracts of our players, but we don't need to. The guys love doing these kinds of things. And, you also see in other coaches, you get to see coaches come up. I mean, we had a head coach who's now an assistant coach with the Atlanta Hawks, who was Ryan Schmidt, who's the head coach in this league. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of others, but those are, we develop a referee. We had a referee go from this league into the NBA. So it's a real opportunity to engage with basketball in your community. If you live in Saskatoon, you've got a team. It's not just the Toronto Raptors. And so there's a lot to look forward to this summer.
More exciting content and exclusive insights? Subscribe to the Homestand Sports Today newsletter at homestandsports.com.
Hey, I want to move into, you have two partners in the gambling space, BetVictor and OLG. Full disclosure again, Homestand Sports, which is one of the Parlay Media Group properties, along with Gaming News Canada. Homestand's collaborating with the league and BetVictor to produce a weekly show during the season, which I'm really excited about. I think that's one thing we've talked a lot about in this forum is operators in the gambling space finding different ways to tell their story. And the three of us are well aware of the criticism around sports betting advertising and criticism of the way networks have tried to integrate sports betting into their broadcasts since the Ontario market opened back in April of 2022. I think partnerships like the BetVictor one are smart. Does give the league a chance to promote the product, promote the players, promote the teams. There obviously will be a sports betting component to this show, but I think this is a kind of strategy that operators should be looking for, Mike. And again, from a partnership standpoint, and I spent some time with Tennis Canada back in the 90s and 2000s. You're always looking for unique marketing opportunities and different ways to do things rather than just slapping a logo on a wall or on a court.
Yeah, I think, there's people if you just look at face value for what these partnerships are, people think them very transactional. But for me, it's way more than that. This is likely the biggest marketing and promotional opportunity you have for a league, because you're talking about, every single game having something new to talk about. And we talk about odds and matchups and all that. It's really, when you get down to it, it's talking about the league, the players, the teams, right? How are they going to match up? How are they going to play together? What gains interest for us outside of just dollars and cents? In addition to the groups that you mentioned, our teams have provincial relationships as well when you go across the country. So it really has expanded the footprint for us. It's all those things that, that we spoke about earlier, which is the most important, which is, getting people to understand and talk about the CEBL in a more profound way. That that to us is what's important. The CBL pick and roll show that we're creating here with your assistance is, again, another outlet to just talk basketball, talk CBL, talk our players. And we know that there are fans out there that are very engaged with, the betting component of it. Like, we can't forget that, of course, but that's how they choose to take in games. I'm not a sports bettor. It changes the way I would focus on a game, but some people really find it appealing. And, we cater to all different types of opportunities. This one, to me, is more profound beyond just the dollars and cents. It really is that full experience of getting to know and take an inside look at the league itself.
Yeah, and John, given your decades of experience in the communications field, the three of us have seen how the sports media landscape has changed so much, and even down to, you look at your days of the Toronto Raptors and the number of beat writers and television stations, and back in your day, there were probably 25 to 30 media people at a Raptors practice. That's no longer the case. So again, opportunities like the pick and roll show, it just gives the league an opportunity, as Mike said, to promote those players and tell fans who the Jamal Murrays and Shias of your league are, and promote the teams as well.
Yeah, there's no question about it that the gaming component is another option for people to engage with the sport, engage with the league, if they choose to engage in that way. And certainly for those of us that have played fantasy leagues through the years, you tend to follow a league and a team and players much more closer when you're in a league competing against your buddies. So they certainly will do that, and it helps get not just the CEBL out there, but also the players, and just it draws more eyeballs to the product. And I grew up in this business as a protege of David Stearns, and he was very anti-gambling. And we all remember the Tim Donaghy saga when Tim was an official who was caught fixing games, and David was very against it. And Adam Silver had brought a different perspective. And the NBA is negotiating its media rights deal, and they're going to triple their media rights deal, and it's almost predominantly due to gaming and the impact that gaming is having on the NBA. So it's part of the world that we operate in now.
Hey, John, Mike and I were talking before I hit the record button. Just, it seems that sports betting is an even hot button issue, more so than ever right now, which seems a bit unusual in the U.S. because we're, 6 years post the overturning of PASPA. And I just wonder, why do you have a theory on why that's the case at all?
Well, it's still fairly new. The gaming space didn't really exist 5 or 6 years ago in this way. You used to have to find a bookie through, the local bar. Now it's on your iPhone. And so everybody's got a device in their hands. And I think there's a lot of issues around this that are going to take some time to resolve. So, if a 10-year-old has an iPhone, can they open up an app and play a bet? And now, take Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, for example, that's a cashless building. And so, they have school day games for Raptors 905 there. If you send your kid to a game and they want to get something to eat or drink, they've got a phone, right, to do that. So these kids now have phones, and then they have access to apps. And, how does that all work? So these are discussions that need to take place within people's homes, and they need to be discussed at the board level with NBA and, NHL, NFL organizations. And leagues have to look at it. I think there's a lot of questions that leagues are still trying to come up with answers. It's evolving right now.
Hey, Mike, one of the reasons why I wanted to get you and John on the show was to talk about sports betting and what's happening right now. And there's been an awful lot of talk about match fixing and competition manipulation. We're all aware of the John Tate Porter situation with the NBA and his ban. When this topic comes up, they look at leagues like yours where players aren't making tens of millions of dollars a year and would probably be more susceptible to being approached to fix a match or fix a certain event within a match. Can you maybe just walk our audience through the steps that the CEBL is taking to make sure that your players are educated and the kind of monitoring that happens to make sure that that you don't face an inevitable scandal?
Yeah, I think the one word you use is education. That has to be at the forefront. Obviously, when players in our league sign contracts, it forms part of their contract. It forms part of our operations manual. It forms part of the memos that we share with the teams. And we can't just talk about players. We have to extend that to executives and team owners and broadcasters. I mean, it's not just limited to that group of players who often are the ones that are kind of zeroed in on. So that's part of it. Then obviously working directly with our gambling providers for them to help, look for irregularities, which obviously it's in their best interest to do so in ours. And, how we provide betting opportunities. So we won't have prop bets going into this season. They are exciting. It's great, and especially in the way our game ends with a target score, you can have some incredible prop bets. Who's going to take it from where, what type of shot, et cetera, et cetera. What is that target score going to be? There's a lot of prop opportunities, but at the same time, you got to walk before you run. And we want to ensure, number one, that we're delivering the best data to our bookmakers, and we're delivering the best experience to our fans that decide to gamble. But it'll be kind of the game, score won or loss, straight up bets. We feel more comfortable with that. It's a lot easier to monitor. Nothing's, foolproof, let's say. And then as we grow towards more of those prop bets, because it's inevitable, then, we've already engaged working with separate third-party integrity providers that then can take another, deeper dive into the action and the handles and everything that happens. So it's not, I really believe we hang our hat on the education piece more than anything. And obviously searching and monitoring as we continue to go on, and limiting those moments or those prop bet opportunities that can really sometimes get out of hand, even though they are likely what the gambler wants to see. So we just have to make sure that from an integrity point of view, because we are young, because our league is on the upswing, we don't want to have a chink in our armor early because somebody wants to make a buck off the back of everything that we've built.
John, the education piece, and again, if you look back at the Shane Pino suspension by the NHL last fall, and we still don't know exactly what happened, which I think was a missed opportunity by the NHL, not just for the NHL, but I think any league, including the CEBLs, and the NFL has seen multiple either people being fired or suspended because they violated the league's gambling policy. There obviously is a lack of understanding. What is the process, and have you and Mike and others around the league have a heightened sense of awareness? Because when you see suspensions like this, it just makes you realize, hey, maybe we're not doing enough to educate everybody. And I think Mike, you didn't mention officials, which is another group of people where you absolutely have to make sure they're educated on the perils of gambling.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages the CEBL has is that it's small, right? We've got 10 franchises, and each franchise carries about a dozen players, and the front offices are 8 to 10 people, which so the ability to communicate and educate and monitor is significantly better than in a league with 30 teams and 17 players on roster and then a G League affiliate. We watch every game. We've got a committee of people who watches every game for different things, officiating, bench conduct, just everything to do with the game. And, so we've got a pretty thorough monitoring system. Nothing's foolproof, but it's something we have to stay diligent about for sure.
And is that through the Genius Sports relationship, John, or the Genius Sports they're handling that integrity and monitoring piece for you?
No, we'll do that together. We have a committee within the league office that I head up with Josh Knuster and Jason Tom and Emma Gunn. And then we also have a referee advisory group that is embedded in each market for all of our games. So we're able to monitor things pretty closely. Again, I mean, if somebody wants to beat a system, there's usually a workaround, but to Mike's point, the prop bets are kind of the slippery slope, and we're not going to have those player prop bets at this time.
Hey, Mike, the legal gambling landscape across the country is interesting. I mean, obviously Ontario has a wide open market, almost 50 operators now, 72, 73 websites, but the rest of the country, it's the provincial lottery and gaming corporations that operate legal sports betting. How does that work for the CEBL? I mean, you have teams in Saskatchewan, BC, Alberta, Quebec now. Are you dealing directly with them? Because again, I think as we mentioned, having the opportunity to have CEBL games on Pro Line or Play Now, there's obviously a benefit when it comes to highlighting the league.
Yeah, we over the years have dealt with that from a league perspective, hands-on, and now as our more private owners come in, they manage those relationships a little bit more directly in terms of the actual transactional relationships, etc. There's a bit of a, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but there's a bit of a, I guess, better feeling in dealing sometimes with the provincial corporations, because you almost feel like a sense of responsibility on their side. I'm not suggesting that's entirely true. So you have to kind of look at them with a wide swath. But we manage those relationships sometimes independently. We were very respective of the laws and around who can gamble and where and who's licensed and who's not. So we don't play in the gray area. We did when we first started because there really wasn't the framework like there is now. We also have our ear to the ground about what's going to happen in places like Quebec and Alberta and other related areas to see if they'll ever privatize. And sometimes it seems like they will, and then other times it seems like they won't. And you know better than me, and we're somewhere in between. But that is more. We do look at those trends, because what happens when and if they privatize, what does that do to our relationships at the league level? Do we expand them beyond? How do we deal with our existing relationships at the provincial level? Every relationship's a little bit different. We find the provincial ones are very much geared to the communities, like the give back to the communities, the integration with the communities. The private operators in Ontario is different. They're private businesses, so they operate somewhat differently, and they allow us kind of a little bit more independence on how we want to relate with the communities in which we work. But our relationships have been good, and they're strong, and they're supportive. And I think we all want the same thing. We want to help grow this brand and their respective brands, and to do things in a safe manner. If you're going to bet on games, we want you to do it in a well-educated and safe manner.
Hey, John, last question. I would think the BetVictor partnership is a mutual opportunity for both sides. Again, if the league had a relationship with say, FanDuel or BetMGM, I mean, those are behemoths who have partnership deals with the major professional sport leagues. I would think this is a real good opportunity for the league and BetVictor, as you mentioned earlier, to kind of walk and not run, but build a partnership together and roll out initiatives like the Pick and Roll Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think our CEBL partners recognize that this is an emerging league and they want to be a part of it. And it's Canadian, and it's something that everyone can be proud of. And a lot of times our partners, they like innovation, they like to be creative, they like to do things a little bit differently, and the CEBL brand definitely represents an opportunity for them to do that.
Hey guys, sorry I lied. One last question, just again because of both your backgrounds in pro sports. Like, how do you guys look at sports betting? Do you see the opportunities? Is it something where you're constantly weighing both sides of the equation? How do you look at it, Mike?
I am bullish on it. I do take a positive look at it because I believe it's an inevitable. We're only talking about legal gambling. We're not even scratching the surface of illegal gambling that obviously still takes place. I look at for all the benefits that will help grow the league, add more fans, provide more opportunities. Not to forsake, bad things happen. We have to obviously be aware of that. But I think the more you ingrain yourself and you have that relationship with your your partner. And to John's point, you're willing to grow together and you're willing to try new things. And, a lot of things we do here at the CBL actually makes our life more difficult. The addition of target score is not as seamless as you may think. It has involved many back and forth with the geniuses and the SISs of the world and all that stuff to properly integrate target score and how it works in that time and the softwares associated with it. So, we're not going to change because it will provide us more handle if we go to the traditional way. We're going to do what is best for the CEBL within the confines and the relationships, the partnerships we have, and promote the league so this league is around for a long time. And if betting changes, we'll change with it if we believe it's in a positive manner, and if it's not, then we'll adjust. I mean, we're acutely aware that anything can happen at any time that could be a detriment to what we built. So we want to avoid those things at all costs.
John?
Yeah, no, I see gaming as an opportunity for people to engage in sports that they like in a different way, and it's a matter of choice. It's like anything else in our society. People can choose to participate or not, and if people get in over their heads, there's places for them to go to get the help that they need. And is it around forever? I don't know. I mean, I remember when tobacco was a big player in the sports space, and now it's not. Is this going to be around in 50 years? I'm not going to bet that it is, but it might be. It's just something that we're learning about, and it's a big player right now.
Great stuff. John Lashway is the Deputy Commissioner of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. Mike Morreale is the league's commissioner. Guys, thanks so much for doing this. Really enjoyed the conversation, and wishing you and the league just a terrific 2024 season. And John, my wife and I were out to a game in Hamilton in the inaugural season, and I'm embarrassed to admit I haven't been out since, but I'm going to have to get down to make the drive from Kincardine to Brampton this year and see a Honey Badgers league. But really appreciate both you guys joining me here.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
really
Steve.
enjoyed the conversation. Talk to you soon.
That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show. As always, you can find this podcast at gamingnewscanada.ca or on the various podcast platforms. Again, we're grateful to both Mike Morreale and John Lashway for their time today, and we look forward to seeing everybody again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Gaming News Canada show. Sign up for our newsletter at gamingnewscanada.ca. Follow Steve McAllister on LinkedIn. Message Steve if you're interested in being a sponsor or featured guest.